Welcome back to the hybrid drawing technical skills instructional. We're into the phase now where we will bring the two parts of the hybrid drawing together. The drawing that we made where we measured the section of the cloister of the Great Court, and the image that we took that will form the background of our hybrid cross-sectional drawing. Now I'm going to open first the cross-section that we produced. Now as you can see, the cross-section is only the outline of the cut section. We haven't shown any of the background detail in elevation, because that will be picked up by the background image that we will superimpose over the top of that. Now just as a double check, if we go File, Image Size, you'll see here that the width and height of the document is an A3 document, 42 by 29.7, and it's at resolution 300 dpi, or pixels per inch. Now it's important we don't change the physical size of this drawing at all, for the reason that we've scanned it in at 1:20 at A3, and we wanted to keep it to scale. So let's just go OK. Now I'm going to open the image that I've selected for the exercise, which is the fourth image, which probably isn't the perfect image to use for the exercise, simply because we do have a little bit of extra perspective coming in across there. You can see there's a vanishing line, so when the camera was set up, it wasn't perfectly perpendicular to the cross-section through there, and part of that is to get just a little sort of hint of the Great Court outside. Now it's not the end of the world, because what we're going to do is we'll use the perspective correction tool in Photoshop to pull that perspective into line and make it more square, to make a more of a one-point perspective. Now the perspective correction, or perspective crop, is sitting underneath usually the crop tool. It's the second one down. So if we select that, and then what you do is you just pull the marquee over the whole image. Now what that does is that it sets up like this grid, and we can adjust the grid with the corner grab handles. We can pull that down, for example, and what we're trying to do is adjust the crop so that I'm trying to align this grid through here with the perspective through, or the line of perspective on the image through there. So what will happen is that when I select or hit enter after adjusting this perspective marquee, Photoshop will recrop the image and square it up so that these lines then become perpendicular again, and that will sort of pull the image back into line. Now I'm going to pull this one across a little bit as well, because there's a little bit of perspective coming up through there. So I'm more or less happy with that. I'm going to hit my enter key. It's going to process it, and then what it will do is you can see that it's straightened up that perspective and straighten that up. It's distorted the image a little bit, so it's possibly not a pure perspective, but we can do a bit of stretching and pulling again once we get it on top of our cross-section to get the two matched reasonably well. So the image here, the image size, it's at 300 dpi, so it's the same as our cross-section, but the actual physical size is a little bit bigger. So the height here is 51 centimeters. I'm just going to pop that down to 29, so it's more or less the same height as the cross-section. It'll just make our job a little bit easier when we do the cut and paste. Now it's not important to make sure that the physical size of the background image remains consistent, because we can edit this in almost any way we want, so long as when we match it to the cross-section, that the cross-section physical size doesn't change, then we'll always be to scale. So I'm going to select all. I'm going to do Control A, select all, put a marquee around all of our image, Control C to copy it, and then let's go over to our cross section, hit the tab up the top there, and Control V and I'm going to paste that background image on top of our drawn 1:20 cross section. Now it's just popped in over the top of that. I'm going to change the layer properties of that new layer it's created. So in the pop-up above the layer palette on the right hand side, I'm going to pull that up and change that to multiply. I'm going to use my layer move tool, which is the little cross on the corner. I'm just going to start repositioning the image sort of through here. Now I'm trying to be a little bit tricky, so I'm going to get this transom through here lining up. Now these two parts haven't lined up here, so I'm going to use that as a reference, but I'm going to start playing around now with the physical size and proportion of that background image. I'm going to edit the pull down menu, transform the call out from the side, scale. I'm going to pull the grab handles through here. I'm going to hold my shift key just to keep the constraints proportion of the image correct there. I'm going to pull that down. I'm going to pull it up a little bit, and I'm going to now just distort it a fraction by squeezing it down. We'll pull it up a little bit, squeeze it down a little bit more. Now this perspective line here is not matching up with that side at all, so again there's going to be a little bit of squeezing, so I'm distorting the background image, but again it doesn't really matter because the main thing is that this part of the drawing here is correct. So looking at sort of through there, we've got a reasonably good match there, an okay match there, and a reasonably good match through there. So I'm going to hit the layer move tool so to apply that transformation I've just made, and what I'll do is I'll turn off the background layer, and you can see the background has disappeared. We still can see the layer 1 that's come in. Now what I'm going to do is save a copy of this and print this out at A3. So if I go File, Save As, now I'm going to make sure that the format is a JPEG, so it will flatten it out, and I'm going to call this the first cross-section scaling. Save that. I'm going to replace the drawing, I've already done it before. Now if I then go File, Open, Cross-section, First Scaling, you can see then that background image, I guess the unprocessed background image, is sitting on our A3 sheet of paper, and I'm going to use this then as a background. I'm going to slip this behind the tracing paper of the section that I've already drawn, and then use these lines here to start to generate some of the interconnecting geometry so that the drawing and the background image start to blend into one another. Now in order to save some time, I've already started that. So if you can see here, this is the first version of that image that I was starting to draw, and you can see I'm trying to find where the vanishing points of the respective sides of the cloister may be. Now you won't get them to match right in the center unless you've got an absolutely perfect perpendicular shot to the picture plane. These will never match, but it's okay because we won't sort of see the lines all coming together here. We just want to start to pick up some of these lines at the front here, and I'll show you the next version of that drawing where I kind of finalized all of that line work, and you can see here I've picked up the the coursing of the block work. I've picked up the corner here. I've connected this sort of section, and I've shown it where it's then connecting with that background image. So I haven't been too fussy about how I've finished it off through here and through here. I haven't continued to draw the lines all the way here because I want to keep this middle part reasonably clear and open, and keep that sort of as the image, and just do most of the blending in around this part. Now I'll leave it there, because we'll come back with another video straight after this one, where we will then finish off the blending of the drawing that I made with the background image.